Wolfgang Halpap, born in Berlin, Germany in 1931. We were taken now from our orphanage, you know. I mean, what happened in the orphanage, I don't have to tell you. But now they took us to the collection point where all the Jews were collected in Berlin, more or less. There were probably about 1,000 there. That was a former Jewish cemetery that the German wiped out. And that was now the collection point. The cattle cars were right behind that complex. There were also regular German houses right next to it too, you know, which they were all on windows and everything else. And now what happened is we came with trucks that they took us from the orphanage to that collection point, you know. So that since it was already full, our children, me, I was a child, they put us most in front of all that, you know, facing the street, you know. And I was, well, about, 8, 9 years old. And I had that boy next to me, same from our house. So I told him, we were there a while, I told him, you know, you see that wall? It's not too far away. It's only a 5-foot or 6-foot wall, hardly 6. Let's go and jump it. And he says, that's a risk. You think so? I said, what have we got to lose? Here we are, we know what's going to happen now, from now on, you know. So he agreed, you know. I said, 1, 2, 3, bang, we won. Well, we were little, we were, you know, we had a lot of energy. Hit that wall right over, you know, with my legs first, jumped right over it, you know. And he right behind me. And as I said, I looked one time back. There was a German SS man. Well, he was maybe 100 yards away. But I'm sure he looked at us, but he didn't shoot. And we went down the street. It was now 45. The Russians already entered Berlin. But you understand, in Berlin, they were still deporting Jewish people, you know. Can you believe it? The Nazis were still deporting people into cattle cars, you know, and in Grunewald, that's a suburb of Berlin, and there these big houses with German people, they still shoved them into cattle cars. Well, anyway, the Russians now, Berlin is big, you know, but they were still fighting with the Germans, you know, in the streets. There were street fights, and I was at my uncle, he's a brother of my mother, we were he had an apartment there, you know, in that street. And we were down in the cellar because the bombing, there was also bombing in Berlin where they kicked all the buildings down, you know. So we were standing there, and all of a sudden we looked, and he said, Jesus, there's a tank coming down the street. Well, who's going to go out there? What is that going to do? Wolfgang. So I went out, you know, all by myself. These guys were all chicken, you know. And I went out, I walked right towards that tank, and the tank went and stopped. And a Russian, I learned later, it's a lieutenant. A Russian lieutenant came out, and he screamed at me. He saw my thing here, he's seen that a lot. He said, Hitler told, Hitler's dead. You know, Hitler told. And I said, oh. And he jumped down. I remember, I'm only a kid. He hugged me and lifted me down. And he got chocolate. Okay, he come down and he gave me some chocolate and I eat it and he says, good boy. I'm in German. Guter Junge, guter Junge. And I said, yeah, Jude, Jude.
My name is Severin Sperling, and I born in March 27, 1940, in Poland, in the city of Częstochowa. I was with mom and dad in the ghetto. The German right away, few months after, that was in 1940, they organized the ghetto. So after this, we went stay locked up with my parents. My mom and dad decided to move me over the wall of the ghetto to the to Christian people. Why? Because they've been feeling probably they're gonna be coming back bad time. And this time, so that's happened. That was in May 1943. And look at that, how absolutely something happened. 2 months later, the Germans bring my mom and dad, another 123 Jewish people, and they shot one by one, and I lost my 2 months. 2 months later, I had with no mom and dad. And then the Christian family, they could get the children. So they told me, call mom and dad. I said, you're not mom, you're not my daddy. Why I have to call you like that? Stay, just wait, your dad come. And they never come up to so many years. These Polish people, the Christian people, they had they had animals because there was the garden and they had the dogs and the other animal. There was the hole under the ground. I was underground, and above there was the animals. But they had all kind of. So there was the secret in the floor door. So they opened it, they put me down, and there was also, I forgot to say, the pipe to outside because somehow to breathe it. And then that's what I was mostly, almost 2 years, I was sitting every night, every during day. Night was not too danger, nighttime.
My name is Maria Teresa Dolgov. I was born in Budapest, Hungary on June 20th, 1944. I don't remember it. I was only 9 months old. But we were liberated by the Russians. And we were hiding in a convent. And when we got out, Mother went and tried to find food. One place she walked by was where the Russian soldiers camped, and there was a gate. And Mother went by it, and the guy it's supposed to have been a very young boy in that little booth. And she went by, and the man saw me and said, "Oh my God." And he said to Mother to stop. And so she stopped and didn't know why. And but she waited. And he came and gave her a bowl of soup and a piece of bread. And then he talked to my mother and said, "I want you to come back here every day about this time, and I will bring the baby, not you. This is for the baby, part of my rations." And so he, for a couple of months, I'm not sure how long, my mother went there every day and got a half a slice of bread with a half a bowl of cup of soup. And that was always, he always said, "This is for the baby." After the Russian soldier was able to share his meal with me to save my life, I was able to escape the Russian occupation and come to America and have 2 sons. I have 6 grandchildren and 7 great-grandchildren.
My name is Andrew Schott. I was born in the Netherlands in 1931. I was imprisoned at Papenburg concentration camp. And I remember the liberation came in the spring of 1945. And that morning, I woke up and there was a lot of, the guys in the barracks were all moving and something going on. And what had happened is a tank had come through the gate and came to approach the barracks. I remember looking through the window and I saw soldiers coming from behind the tank. And when our guys proceeded in busting down the door and they went outside, the guys went back behind the tank. And I was wondering what was going on. And then they came back out and they wore handkerchief, a couple of them wearing gas masks. I guess the stench of our barracks and the guys that were in was pretty bad. But anyway, we were liberated, and they, one of the first things they did, they gave us a biscuit to eat, and I took that biscuit and chomped down on it and about broke my jaw. And I figured, I had no knowledge of what nationality those guys were. They didn't speak Dutch, and I didn't speak whatever they did. And so, but then I figured maybe they're Canadians and giving us used hockey pucks. But I found out later that, that was intentionally so that we wouldn't eat it too fast. And then later on in the day, they gave us another one of those biscuits. And then they accompanied by a little bit of warm tea. Now I knew who they were. There was only one army that carries tea into combat. We were liberated by the British. Then they slowly started moving us out. I left at the camp the same day, not everybody does. And after that, I spent about 9 or 10 days in a processing in an old school building. And there they fed us and they took, and I ran into a nurse that was from Holland. She spoke Dutch, so for the first time in well over a year, I had been able to speak my own language. And after about 10 days, the nurse asked me if I was ready to go home. She said, "You gained 16 pounds since you've been here." I said, "How much do I weigh?" She said, "You weigh 95 pounds. So I gained, 19 pounds since I've been there. And I figured out about 79 pounds when I, and that was after eating those 2 biscuits. I was transported back to Holland and met my mom who had survived. And then we waited, and then later on my sister came home, and that was all in the family. The rest of them all perished. My brother died at Auschwitz. My dad died at Bergen-Belsen. My sister survived Dachau. The other sister we don't know.
My name is Valentina Yakovlevskaya. I was born in 1938, and when the war in Belarus began, I was only 2 years old, and my family lived in Belarusian area, city Mother, and with mother, with father, with me, 2 years old. And the second baby in our family was my sister, Ludmila, and she, at those time, was only 2 months old. And the first days when Germans bombed Mother, Belarusian city, it was terrible days, terrible, like a hell. My father was sent to the front the second day from beginning the war. So in July 1st in 1941, we needed to be evacuated because Germans occupied almost all territory, Belarusian territory. What my mom could take for evacuated, only two small suitcases, and one suitcase was full only baby diapers, and the other case was couple things, clothes things. During our traveling, it was bombing, and bombed again, and people were very, very scared. My mom had the second girl only 2 months, but her breast milk dried, and no food, how to give something to eat to my sister, to me, and for mom. And she asked Russian soldier when the station, when train stopped at some station and military train was next to mom, my mother ran to military train and asked soldiers to help her. And soldiers every time, every moment were ready to help. They given her sugar, хлеб, sugar, bread, something, other product. And very important was for my mom, she got a special food wrapping, and what soldiers used like a socks, but my mom used this wrapping like a diapers, and it was very, very important for mom. In 1944, my mom got paper, and this paper told her husband, our father, was killed. So my mom became widow, without husband, without father, and we stayed in this small town to 1945, and this year in May it was victory. Everybody was cried from joy, not from something. They cried, they applied, they kiss each other, and it was real big holiday.
My name is Sidney Finkel. I was born in Poland in a town, Lodz, a very large town. We were only taken there because it had better medical facilities. My liberation is we've been at that point, we've been under the Nazi rule for 5 years, almost 6 years, and there seemed like to be no end. But of course, an end came. The American army, the British army, the Russian army, they all beat the Germans. And we were in a concentration camp called Buchenwald. And it was a big concentration camp. He had a lot of young kids. 900 young kids were there. The day, just get this, the day before we were liberated by the Americans, we were marched out and put into the trains that, cars, freight cars, they were not passenger or anything. The freight cars, we had to do our business, everything in the thing. It was horrible. They had no money, no food. The thing lasted, I think, 3 or 4 weeks. The train was just going from one place to another. We couldn't allow to get off the train, but we did anyway. We were so starved, hungry, that we would jump off the train. The German military trains were standing next to us because they couldn't move anywhere, and begged them for food. And the people, the guards that guarded us were Ukrainian. That's why I have a bad taste of it. They were miserable, horrible people. They wanted to kill us. When we got into this town ghetto called Theresienstadt, the train came in, and everybody was cheering. It was free. The Russians were there. They were now free. After Theresienstadt we were taken off the train, I had typhus, and I was almost dead. But I had a lot of support from Jewish people that came from England. I was like really in bad shape, but I had the image of my mother and father coming towards me and saying that I had to survive. I was the only future. And I opened up my eyes, and there were a lot of wonderful young people from England that had come to help us. The Russian soldiers, they were garrisoned in there, and they were nice. They were friendly. They taught us all kind of swear words. But I got well there. And the British government allowed 1,000 young people to come to England. That was a big, big deal. Had to go through Parliament and everything else, and they only allowed us to come in through transit so we could go to another country. We were the boys on the train. There was the murder trains. We became really great friends, and we became family. 1,000 young people that were allowed to come to England, they eventually became the 45-8 Society, and were very active in helping Israel and helping each other. We all became family.